Okay, so I think I'll continue letting people in as we go, but I might just get started so we can get things moving. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to dive into the world of advanced search. So this is, whether you manage websites yourself or you're a digital marketer, or you're just curious about user experience itself, this is going to be a great session for you. Today, we are going to explore what advanced search is and how it can significantly improve your website's user experience and engagement. We'll look at how a well-optimized search function can help your visitors find exactly what it is that they're looking for quickly and efficiently. And our aim is to give you some actionable insights that you can apply directly on your own website. But first, a little bit more about HDK. So HDK are a digital marketing agency. We're based in London, in Hoxton, and we help people doing great things in arts and culture sector, like yourselves, create digital experiences that impact people's lives. So we always say we get arts, but we also get digital, because we are a team of artists and dancers, musicians, theatre goers and enthusiasts, you name it. Arts and culture is at the very core of who we are and what we do. We offer services in digital marketing, campaigns in design, and web development. So back to today's topic, and you might be wondering, what exactly do we mean by advanced search? Simply put, advanced search is more than just a basic search box on your website. It's about using algorithms and more refined techniques to understand what users are looking for, even if they don't exactly know how to ask for it. So in order to do that, this involves understanding the intention behind search queries, handling any misspellings or synonyms, and delivering the most relevant results in a user-friendly way. So why is this important? Because a great user experience can be such a game changer. It not only improves your user satisfaction on your website, but it can also increase conversions and keep your visitors on your website for longer. For arts and culture organizations, it means that users will be able to go on your website and search for specific events, exhibitions, or for content that they know that you offer, whether that's on your blog or anything else. So it's a great way of enhancing their experience and increasing engagement with you as an organization. But before we get too much into the details, we'll have some introductions. So I am Antonia Johnston. I'm a senior project manager at HDK. I'm a white woman in my 30s. I have short brown hair. I'm wearing glasses and a black dress today with little white lines on it. And I'm going to pass you over to Linus.
Thank you, Antonia. My name is Linus. I am a web support developer here at HDK. I am also in my early 30s. I have a mustache, a bald head, and I am also wearing glasses and a yellow jumper. I'll pass you over to Phoebe.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Phoebe. I'm HDK's Partnerships and Events Manager. I am a white woman, also in her early 30s. I have blonde hair, which is up to date, and I'm wearing a blue shirt and gold earrings. I have stepped in as a last-minute host for this webinar. We were meant to be joined by Levita from HDK, who is much more of an expert on this topic than I am, but she's kindly handed over her notes. So just bear that in mind, please.
Thank you, Phoebe. And you are our hero for stepping in, helping us today. So here's what you can expect from our session today over the next hour. First, we'll be covering the various types of search functionalities that are available to you. And Linus is going to guide us through a few different examples and help you understand what might be the best fit for your website. Then Phoebe is going to tell us more about how you can identify and address any common barriers that your users might experience in their search journeys. She'll be sharing some practical tips on how to spot where users might be getting stuck or frustrated, and how your search function can be more intuitive and user-friendly. And then finally, Linus and Phoebe are going to team up to explore how you can measure and analyze the performance of your website search functionality. They'll introduce you to key tools like Google Analytics 4 and Google Search Console, and demonstrate how those tools can actually help you monitor your search queries, track user behavior, and identify opportunities for improvement. Throughout the session, do feel free to ask any questions or put your experiences into the chat box, and then we'll respond to you as we go, but also we've got some time at the end for a Q&A as well. And that's about it from me. So I'm going to hand you now over to Linus.
Thank you so much, Antonia. So what I'm going to do now over the next 5 to 10 minutes or so is I'm going to provide you with a few examples of how different companies harness different types of search functionality, and then give you a recommendation of maybe 1 or 2 services that can help you achieve similar functionality on your own website. So the first of these functionality I want to talk about is keyword search. So keyword search is finding relevant information using specific words or phrases. So a good example of this is Google search engine, something that we all know and use. So it allows users to input keywords or phrases to find relevant web pages, documents, images, anything really. And obviously Google is way more complex than this, but it should give you a good idea of what a keyword search is. So if you want to do something similar like this on your own website, the tool that I would recommend is probably Elasticsearch. So this is a powerful open source search engine that provides full text search capabilities, allows you to index and search large volumes of data quickly and efficiently, and it also supports keyword search. And we actually use Elasticsearch in a lot of the projects that we build here at HDK. The next one I want to touch on is advanced search filters. So advanced search filters, you essentially refine the search results by specifying certain criteria. So Amazon is a good example of this. So here users can perform keyword searches as the number 1 step, and then refine their results using advanced filters such as brand, price range, customer ratings. And then this helps users narrow down the vast selection of results that they get on Amazon to find exactly what they want. Algolia is a good tool if you want to do something similar. So it's a hosted search engine that offers advanced search capabilities with their customizable filters and faceting. It allows you to implement complex search filters and sorting options to refine search results based on various attributes. Faceted search. So this is another good one. Faceted search. So this filters results using multiple categories like price, branding, or rating. Now you might be sat there thinking that faceted search is the same as advanced search filters. And I guess you wouldn't be entirely wrong. They do share some of the same characteristic. But if you think as advanced search filters as things that you tick before the search, before you run the search query, and then faceted search is more interactive, allowing users to refine the results as they go. So eBay is a great example of this. So eBay uses faceted search to help users filter search results based on multiple attributes like category, condition, price range, and then users can apply multiple filters simultaneously to refine the search. So Apache Solr is an open sourced search platform built by Apache, and it supports faceted search and advanced search and even keyword search. I mean, it allows users to filter search results based on multiple attributes. And Solr is also highly configurable and scalable for handling complex search requirements. Next one I want to touch on is something that's, I guess, very much in the current zeitgeist, which is semantic search. So semantic search understands the intent and context. It's more like natural speech, and then it delivers more relevant results. So IBM Watson Discovery uses semantic search to understand the intent and context behind user queries. And, it goes beyond simple keyword matching to recognize synonyms, related concepts, and I guess the overall meaning of the queries. And by doing so, it provides more relevant results from a knowledge base or document collection. If you want to do something like this on your website, it's probably going to be quite expensive, but Microsoft Azure Cognitive Search, say that 4 times fast. It provides semantic search capabilities using AI and machine learning, and it understands the context and intent behind the queries, like I mentioned. And by doing so, it offers more relevant and accurate search results. Another fun one is predictive or auto-suggest search. So this is, it does what it says on the tin. It's predictive, predictive search suggests queries based on the partial input. Google does this as well. But so does YouTube. So YouTube search bar is it provides auto-suggestions as users type. It does it based on popular searches, based on the user's history and trending content. So this feature helps users quickly find videos related to their interest and speeds up the entire search process. And if you want to experiment with something like this, I would try, if you're a little more technically minded, typehead.js. This is part of the Twitter typehead library. Typehead.js is it's a JavaScript library for implementing autocomplete and predictive search functionality. So it provides suggestions based on user input and can be integrated with various data sources to enhance the search experience. Now, I think at this point, I should probably also mention that a lot of the service providers I have mentioned provide some, if not all, of the functionality that I've spoken about here. So advanced search, faceted search, semantic search, predictive search. So which one do you pick, essentially? If you have all of these options, what are the things that you should consider before choosing? I think number one here is probably scalability. So how well the search solution will scale with a growing data set. So you don't want to be caught, 2 years down the line outgrowing your search capabilities because you just have too many items to search for. So that's absolutely something to think about. Performance is another top one. So the speed of indexing and query responses. Users don't want to be kept waiting. Relevance, so the ability of your search to return the most relevant results. This might not matter too much if you have limited data to search for, maybe only 1 or 2 items. But if you have lots of things on there, you're going to want the most relevant items to show up. Complexity of implementation. So I mentioned typehead.js, and yes, this is cheap and robust, but it's quite difficult to implement in your website. So, some of the services I mentioned, they take a lot of technical know-how to implement, and some of them are pretty much plug and play. Those tend to be a little more expensive. Maintenance, another huge one. So the ongoing management and operational overhead. So you need to consider how robust your given service is. Is it going to take a lot of resources to keep functional? Some of the service providers that I mentioned, they have their own dedicated maintenance teams, which could be critical for you. And finally, a final one there is cost. You all won't have the same budget, the budget for initial setup and ongoing operations. Some providers will have little to no upfront costs, but may come with a hefty fee to keep operational. So bear these things in mind, and then speak to your website provider or a subject matter expert, and then make a decision bearing these things in mind.
Thank you, Linus. So Sue has just put into the chat to say, can we explain a bit more about scalability? And I just want to check that. So basically by scalability, we mean to consider how your organization is going to grow. And if you're going to be adding in more blog pages and how many events that you're going to be planning on hosting. So if the content and on your website is going to continue to grow, and that's what we mean by data there, then you need to consider what kind of search function is going to be the most beneficial further down the line, when you might have a really full blog and multiple seasons every year of events. Would you say that's helpful, Linus, or is there anything else you want to add?
No, absolutely. That's perfect. Essentially, just think about how your website and your content and everything that you put online, how that's going to grow in the next 2 years. Let's say that you, I don't know, you start a podcast, or you start a video series. This is then going to clog up the database, and if your search engine isn't optimized for that, then it's going to take longer to get the results, or they might not be relevant. So just bearing in mind things like that before you pick the service that you're going to stick with.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you both. So next we're going to look at how to identify barriers in your search journeys to improve user experience. So before we jump into this topic, I wanted to ask, from your experience searching on websites, what would you say are the top barriers to an effective search experience? So when you're searching, what are the things that frustrate you? What are the things that you find are, you're tripping up on when you're trying to find something that you're looking for? We'll give you just a couple of minutes to add your answers into the chat. Yes, so Barbara is saying irrelevant content. Absolutely, it's really annoying when you search for something and you get something completely different. Totally ineffective. Barbara also said ads, so has Richard. So yeah, it can be very frustrating that ads can get in the way of what it is that you're actually searching for. Getting research results from foreign websites when you want UK only, absolutely, it'd be really good if you could filter that. And Saskia, too many results, not specific enough, or you get results but you can't see why because the keyword isn't highlighted. That's a really good point, because I think in the heading and the introduction text it might not be obvious, so just to know where that's kind of mentioned would be really useful. Clutter, too many pop-ups, not sure where to search. These are all totally accurate and some of the most common barriers to an effective search experience. So if you're still writing, please feel free to continue in the chat, but we are now going to look at the top 5 barriers to a positive search experience. So number 1 is a poor search algorithm. So if a search algorithm can't understand synonyms, misspelt words, or variations in phrasing, you may struggle to find what you need. The second is an ineffective search interface. So if an interface is limited, or it's not prominently placed or easily recognized as a search function, you're going to struggle to find the search bar. You may also require a specific search function, such as a date range or category, or as Catherine suggested, the kind of country source of the content. And if these aren't available, it can really hinder the search experience. The third is inadequate content tagging. So if your website content isn't properly tagged or categorized, it might not appear when people search for it. It can also lead to irrelevant or incomplete search results, which are all things that have popped up in the chat today. A lack of personalization as well. So if a search function doesn't take into account factors like user behavior, preferences, or history, it can lead to quite generic results that don't meet a specific user's needs. And finally, if a search function isn't optimized for mobile devices, users might have difficulty putting in their queries or even viewing the results on their phone. Slow performance on mobile is another issue, and that can also lead to frustration and drop-off. So these are some of the most common barriers to a positive search experience. But how do you identify which of these barriers are present on your website at the moment? So the first method is examining user behavior. So this can be done through user journey mapping, heat mapping, and session recordings, all methods which can provide insights into the steps users take when searching on your website, including things like what they search for and where they drop off. So by identifying patterns in user behavior, you can identify barriers to an effective search experience and understand where your website might need improvement. Another way to identify barriers is to look at common pain points. So just to quickly explain, what we mean by pain points is common issues that users come across that cause them to either lose interest or, worst case scenario, just leave your website completely. These pain points when it comes to search can include queries that return no results or lead to high bounce rates, slow loading times, and overly complex filtering systems. Next, we have user feedback and testing. So one way to improve your search functionality is to ask your website users directly. That way you can find out what they do and don't like about your current search, and even gather suggestions for what they think could make it better. User testing and feedback can be carried out in a number of different ways, including surveys, A/B testing, again, something to speak to your website provider about, or even just a more hands-on user testing workshop. Finally, you can carry out a technical audit. So this would involve auditing your keyword matching and checking to see if synonyms are handled well by your search algorithm, searching on different devices to make sure the functionality works well across things like desktop, mobile, tablet, etc. And also auditing the accessibility of your search is a really important thing to look at. In particular, your search's compatibility with things like screen readers and other assistive technologies to make sure that everybody is able to use your search functionality. So once you know what your search barriers are, you can set about improving them and therefore improving user engagement on your website. Linus.
Thank you so much, Phoebe. That's very interesting. So there are some, I guess, important metrics to keep in mind when measuring search performance as well. And I think the main one of these, it can be a little daunting at first, but, if you just keep these few metrics at the forefront of your mind when assessing the search performance, then it should be a little easier to understand. So the first one of these is the click-through rate, or the CTR. So this is the percentage of users who click on one or more of the search results. And obviously a high CTR indicates that search results are relevant to the user's query. Another good one is the zero results rate. So this is the percentage of search users that return zero results. So a high rate here suggests that the search algorithm is not effectively matching search queries to your content. And then another good one here is the results relevance. So this is the precision of the results. So this measures how many of the retrieved results are relevant to the query. And then the recall. So this measures how many of the relevant results were retrieved out of all of the possible relevant documents. So these three all they all measure content, but if you want some harder data on the speed of your search, you should look at things like the search response time. So this is the time that it takes for search engines to return a result after the query is submitted. So obviously faster response here enhances the user experience. And then if you want to get really technical about it, you can find out what the time to first byte is, or the TTFB, which is the time it takes to receive the first byte of data from the server after a search query is submitted. And this obviously also impacts user satisfactions, whether this is low or high, especially. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I should say at this point that these are just a few of the metrics in mind. If you're super interested in this, I'd recommend this article by Algolia as a starting point. I think that's going to be popped in the chat right now. So great. Okay, cool. So you know what metrics to look for, but where do you even find these things? Where would you find the click-through rate and the search response time and the zero results rate? So, I mean, you can use several tools and techniques. It's all kind of dependent on your website's infrastructure and the tools you already have in place, or maybe tools you should put in place. So the number one here, for two reasons, its robustness and its cost. It's free. It's Google Analytics. So with Google Analytics, as long as you have enabled site search tracking, it's a relatively easy thing to do. You can just Google that, how to do site search tracking. But after this is done, GA4 is a really powerful tool that can provide you both with the CTR and the zero results rate. So if you don't have that enabled on your website, do that now. There are also custom solutions. So obviously the services I mentioned before, like Elasticsearch or Algolia, or really any of them, they usually have built-in features or logging mechanisms that can be queried directly to obtain relevant data. And if you're a little more technically minded, and if you have access to the search data itself, so the database where you store your content, you can write custom SQL queries to help calculate these metrics directly from your database. And then once you've done this and you've figured out which areas are performing well, maybe areas that are underperforming, you then need to evaluate your content.
Thank you, Linus. So to evaluate your content, you can audit it to make sure that it matches up with what users are searching for. You can also check that your content is up to date, because outdated content can naturally frustrate users. And you can also identify areas within your content where keywords could be incorporated in a way that feels natural, of course, to make sure that the main search terms people are using are present in your content. But it's worth noting that content evaluation isn't a kind of just one and done kind of exercise. So we would recommend performing audits on an ongoing basis to ensure ongoing search optimization. In terms of how frequently, it really depends on how much content you have and how often you upload it, and the resources that you have on your team. But a good place to aim for is evaluating your content around once a quarter. Doing so will improve the effectiveness of your website search, improve user experience, and increase engagement in the content that you're posting. So it's absolutely worth it.
Amazing. Thank you, Linus and Phoebe, for talking us through all of those points. We can move on to our Q&A section now. So if you've got a question, then please do pop it in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask us directly, then that's cool too. So let us know what questions you have. Brilliant. Thanks for completing the survey, everybody. So Catherine has sent us in a question. What would you recommend as the easiest low-cost things to do to improve your search findability? Is it improving the copy to contain keywords? So just for a bit of clarification here, if that's okay, Catherine, are you referring to the search function on your website, or do you mean overall SEO, just so I can double check for this? So if you're referring to the search function on your website, or if somebody's searching you on Google. Both, really. Okay. If we start with the search function on your website, because to be honest, they kind of align quite nicely together, and obviously Linus, Phoebe, jump in with anything as well. So the easiest and low cost things to do to improve your search findability would be to really think about what content you're uploading and why it's relevant. So it really goes back down to your kind of the title that you're using in your content. Say it's a blog post, you want to make sure that the title of your blog is almost answering a question itself. So if you include keywords in your title and also in that initial introduction on your blog post, then that is, it's a free way of improving how people come across that content, but it also is a helpful way of identifying what that content is about and why it's relevant to the search query. And that will not only improve the search functionality on your website, but it is also best practice for general search engine optimization. So how people find your content on Google as well.
And just to add to that, in terms of identifying the appropriate keywords for each piece of your content, for your website, you can have a look at the most popular search terms that people are using specifically there. But also for both your website and for SEO, you can have a look at Google Ads, the platform, have a really good free tool called Keyword Planner. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of it already, but you can add a link to a specific piece of content and maybe add a couple of, notes in terms of like what the topic is. For instance, if it's a piece about Renaissance paintings, you would put that in, and then it would come up with a list of search terms that you could then use and incorporate throughout the content, and that would have a positive effect on your internal search and on SEO. Just to kind of add to what Tony was saying.
And I'm just going to add one more thing there, and that's if your website supports categorization of content, like blog posts or pages or videos, is keeping those sort of relevant, or sort of matching those categories up to maybe important keywords that you think users are searching for, and then keeping that the same across your whole website.
Thank you. I hope that helps, Catherine. Let us know if you've got any kind of follow-up questions, or if anybody else has any other questions that they want to ask. Great. Thanks, Catherine. That's great that we were able to answer that for you. And Sharon has said, is there a way to tab or automatically archive information to ensure only updated information is available to prevent old information coming to the top of searches? I had to search for up-to-date info today. Both sites said today's info, and both had info for April and July 24, not today, wasting search time and causing frustration. This appears to be a common problem. We once had visitors turn up for an event that happened 3 years previously. Okay, I see, that would be not ideal.
I'm happy to take this one, Antonio.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good with you. So yes, there is a way to essentially filter search results based on date. So I mean, this should be relatively easy to set up for your from your web service provider. But yes, you should be able to just have essentially a tick box that you can tick that will then remove any results that you don't want showing on your search function. So it may be interesting to know what technology your website is built on there, and then maybe I could answer it in a little more detail for you. I guess we can talk about Kara's question in the meantime.
Yeah,
Is there
no
another
problem.
keyword site which doesn't require signing up to Google Ads as they require payment details? That's maybe one for you, Phoebe.
Yes.
Oh,
So-
okay.
oh, no. Well, I've just pulled a list from the internet so that you can have a look at what works for you. I'll just add that. Oh, what have I just done? I'll just add that to the chat now. And hopefully there's one there that that works for you. I think with these things, it's kind of just about what user experience you prefer.
From experience, I've used Answer the Public quite a lot, and I found that really helpful in actually deciding and curating what content to include. So you can put in, like dance classes, and then it will come up with the what, where, why, how, all the different types of questions that people are putting into Google and other search engines about that specific topic, and then you can curate your content in order to answer those questions. Great, and we've got some more recommendations for Answer the Public too. So just going back to Sharon's question, was that helpful? Did you want to give us more information on your system at all? Or all right, great. So Linus, Sharon says, thanks. The website is run by local authority, centralized IT department, not individual teams. So they don't always understand different teams have different requirements. And the info was very helpful. Great.
Great. I'm glad the info was helpful there. Yeah, I mean, it kind of now you're kind of at the question of how is your search function set up? It looks like maybe that can be optimized for you in a better way, but maybe they've made decisions in the past to not do that because it impacts other sites in different ways. Unfortunately, it's quite difficult for me to give you more helpful advice here without looking at the technology and what the search capabilities already are on the site.
Thank you. And thank you, Saskia, for joining us. Do we have any other questions? We've got a few more minutes of our time, if so, which we can answer a few more. If not, I will move on to rounding up the session. Great.
Yeah, absolutely, Sharon. Raise it with them and they'll hopefully be able to help you.
Okay, so I think I will just summarize up the session. Thank you as well for joining. Thank you, Ruby. So we've got a few webinars coming up. The next webinar is about culture segments and how to refine your website user journey using those. And that will be a session with myself and a couple of other members of HTK, and will also be joined by Audience Agency as well. The next session is about accessibility in short form for social media. And then we've also got coming up how to maintain your website's useful glow. And if you visit our website, you can see the next few webinars coming up over the next year, I believe. And then I'm also going to share a link to sign up to our newsletter if you haven't already. Although that's all, I've pasted it and it's all one word. Sorry, that's not very helpful. And so, yeah, then you can keep up to date with news on what we're up to and any marketing tips and industry insights as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Phoebe, for pasting it in a much more well-formatted way.